Why America starts with personal sanctions first. The hidden psychology of power collapse. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just a discussion about geopolitics. This is about something far more dangerous. Why do powerful regimes repeatedly make the very choices that destroy them? And why does the outside world, especially the United States, begin by targeting individuals instead of entire nations? To understand modern power, you must first understand one brutal reality. Nations rarely collapse overnight, but power structures begin to crack at the level of individuals, long before the system itself falls apart. And that is exactly where America strikes first. When Washington analyzes a government, it is not simply looking at speeches or diplomatic gestures. It studies patterns. Anti-American rhetoric combined with growing ties to China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea is interpreted as strategic drift. Violations of sanctions are viewed not as disagreements, but as direct violations of the international rules-based order. Internal crackdowns paired with expanding protests signal rising instability, and erratic behavior from national leaders create something the United States fears more than hostility itself: unpredictability. Because in international politics, unpredictability is risk. The central question is simple. Is this government still a manageable ally, or is it becoming a future threat? That distinction changes everything. From the American perspective, the danger does not begin when tanks move. It begins when trust erodes. A state that slowly distances itself from existing alliances, strengthens military or economic cooperation with rival powers, and openly collaborates with sanctioned actors, is no longer viewed as merely independent. It becomes reclassified. Not yet an enemy, but no longer reliable. This is where the concept of a potential risk state emerges. And this stage is critically misunderstood. Most people assume sanctions begin suddenly, after some dramatic event. That is false. By the time formal sanctions appear publicly, the strategic decision-making process is often already far advanced behind closed doors. In reality, there are psychological and operational stages. First comes the normal alliance stage: stable cooperation, predictability, mutual trust. Second comes the concern stage. Diplomatic warnings increase. Pressure quietly begins. Third comes the most important phase: the potential risk state. This is the stage where strategic drift, sanctions violations, internal unrest, and leadership instability begin appearing together. And this is where America quietly shifts from observation to preparation. Intelligence collection expands. Back-channel warnings are delivered. Allied coordination begins. Financial monitoring intensifies. But here is the most important part. This is also the stage where the United States often begins targeting individuals. Not the entire country, individuals. Why? Because modern pressure campaigns are psychological before they are military. In international strategy, this is called targeted sanctions. Instead of immediately crushing an entire economy, the system isolates key elites one by one. Politicians, judges, prosecutors, military officers, financial intermediaries, corporate executives. The message is carefully designed. We know who you are. We know what you are doing, and we can reach you personally. This changes the psychology inside the regime itself. Loyalty weakens. Fear spreads internally. Elites begin questioning whether the leadership can still protect them. And once that doubt enters the inner circle, the structure begins to decay from within. This is why personal sanctions are so powerful. For example, illicit financial transfers connected to North Korea are not treated merely as political disagreements. Washington often views them as financial crimes tied to sanctions, evasion, and potential weapons funding. At that point, consequences can move very quickly. Personal bank accounts may be frozen. Access to dollar-based transactions can disappear. Travel bans can be imposed almost immediately. And notice something important. The first targets are often not ordinary citizens. They are facilitators. The politician who approved the deal, the financial institution that processed the transfer, the prosecutor who buried the investigation, the corporate executive who executed the operation. Because the objective is not simply punishment. The objective is fragmentation. The same applies to illicit oil transfers or resource smuggling operations. When covert shipping networks, third country routing systems, or state-backed companies become involved, the response often begins with selective pressure against the individuals managing the system. This creates internal panic without triggering immediate total confrontation. That is the genius of targeted sanctions. They destabilize the psychology of power before attacking the structure of the state itself. And this reveals something most people fail to understand about modern geopolitical warfare. The final collapse of a regime usually begins long before the public realizes it. Not with explosions, not with invasions, but with isolation. The isolation of decision makers, the erosion of trust, the silent spread of fear within elite circles. History repeatedly shows the same pattern. A regime becomes dangerous the moment its inner circle stops believing in its own future. And perhaps that is why ancient wisdom still matters today. The Tibetan Book of the Dead once said, "Fear does not come from the outside. It is born from the collapse already growing within." Power works the same way. External pressure alone rarely destroys a system. The real collapse begins the moment internal fractures become impossible to hide. And once that process starts, the ending is often only a matter of time. If you want to understand how modern empires truly fall, not just politically but psychologically, make sure you subscribe, share this video, and stay with us for the next episode. Because next time, we will explore the one American strategy that ruling elites fear most. Not economic destruction, but psychological isolation.